If your child is refusing to go to school because of their anxiety or OCD, you don't want to miss this video because there's a lot of things that parents are doing that are inadvertently making it worse. We'll talk about that and what to do instead. Stay tuned. That's what's up next. Hi, my name is Natasha Daniels. I'm a child anxiety and OCD therapist. I make videos to support you so you can support your kids with anxiety and OCD. If you're new, welcome. I totally get this struggle because I have multiple kids with anxiety and OCD, and inevitably, they have all struggled with going to school at one time or another because that is really part of anxiety and OCD. Going to school is hard. It's hard for a lot of different reasons depending on their anxiety or OCD theme. And there are a few things that parents do that seems to be the gut reaction to treat this issue that can backfire pretty intensely. So let's break down what those are. And then at the end, I'm going to role play some first steps in what to do with your child. The first mistake that we often get into is the power struggle. And I get this from a personal level. It's easy to get into a power struggle because maybe you're getting pressure from the school, maybe you're even getting pressure from the city, or the truancy officer, and you're worried about your child's grades or their ability to function. There's a lot of pressure that's building up over and over again when we're dealing with school refusal, and it can feel like it's spiraling really fast. And so it's no wonder that a lot of us will take that pressure and transfer it over to our kids. I've been there. I've done that. Where we're kind of like, you have to go to school, right? I go to work, you go to school. Or if you don't get up and go to school, then you're going to fail out of school and you're not going to be able to make anything out of yourself, right? We say these things out of anxiety, maybe out of anger, irritation, and overwhelm. We're all different. Maybe you're getting pressure because you're being late, you're going late to your work. And so you're getting pressure from your boss, or you're getting phone calls all the time from the school, from the nurse, from your child directly wanting to come and get picked up. You are not alone. This is a very common and overwhelming struggle for a lot of us who are raising kids with anxiety and OCD. But putting fire on fire doesn't burn it out. It makes a bigger flame. It's very easy and enticing to get into a power struggle and start threatening and punishing and being forceful and getting our kids to go to school. But when it's because of anxiety and OCD, more often than not, that only makes the anxiety and OCD worse. And ironically, it makes them even more avoidant. Mistake number two is that a lot of times parents go right into solutions. And so they might entice them. This is kind of the opposite of what I was just talking about in number one. They might entice them or offer them incentives. If you can go to school, you'll get $10. Or if we can just get you to school, then X, Y, and Z will happen when you get home. Or we say, just go for half the day and just make it through. And we're throwing solutions onto this burning fire, to continue with that metaphor, without even knowing where is the source to this flame? What is the fuel line to this fire? Why is this happening? A lot of times, and this is similar to sleep, a lot of times we assume that it's obvious. Well, they're anxious to go to school. Like, what else is there, Natasha? Well, there's a lot. Why are they anxious to go to school? What is causing them to be anxious to go to school? Getting to the core fear, which we're going to talk about in a little while. I'm going to role play how to find that core fear in specific situations around school avoidance. That's important. And when we start to offer solutions and incentives and bribery to get them to go to school, again, similar to the punitive approach, we're throwing everything at the wall and seeing what will stick. And we have no idea what is actually causing the problem most of the time. Mistake number three, the final mistake, not an exhaustive list of mistakes that we can make, but the third most common mistake that I've seen in my therapy practice is giving them an out right from the beginning. This is, don't go to school. This is too hard. This is too hard for you. This is too hard for me. I'm exhausted. Let's homeschool. Let's do online school. Let's find a solution where you don't have to leave the house. Now, I'm not saying that that inevitably won't be where you land. You might. You can have a child who is acutely struggling with their mental health and they cannot, it's a bridge too far for them to go to school. Maybe they've been refusing to go to school for a very long period of time. They're going to fail out or they're going to get in trouble, and you're doing damage control. You're just not going to get them to where they need to be in the period of time that the school wants you to do it. Or their mental health isn't going to get where it needs to be for their stability. So they're going to have to take a reprieve. They're going to have to go out of school to be able to work on their mental health. So there are reasons. There are a lot of reasons. And another reason could be school's not the best opportunity for them. Maybe it's not the best environment. Maybe they can't excel. Maybe they have other issues going on like ADHD or sensory issues, and a big school environment isn't what they need. So there are a lot of reasons why we may eventually go to an alternative solution in education. However, when you give your kids an out and we just press that parachute and we escape the problem without even knowing what the problem is, we might find sometimes that we're making the problem even bigger, because avoidance is the fuel line to anxiety in general. And when we just facilitate avoidance without understanding the core fear, without understanding the avoidance, without building skills to help them tolerate the discomfort that anxiety or OCD is bringing, we are really putting a Band-Aid on a bullet hole, which is not helpful. And so getting to that core fear and seeing, is it a school problem, something that's happening in the school environment that A, needs to be fixed if possible, or B, cannot be fixed and therefore that environment is not optimal for my child's success? Or is it a problem that is anxiety or OCD specific and removing them from the environment isn't really going to do anything because it just happens to be that their anxiety or OCD is showing up in the school environment, and now that they're not in school, it's going to show up in other environments. And all we did was just kick the can down the road because it's anxiety and OCD that's the issue and not the school. So it brings us all the way back full circle to step number 1, which is, what is the core fear? What is driving this school avoidance? That's where you want to start. And how do we do that? I'm going to role play for you how I would talk to kids and how I have talked to kids in my practice and how I've even talked to my own kids when I was trying to figure out what is going on with school avoidance. So I know that you're really struggling with going to school, and it seems like it's really hard for you to get yourself together to be able to go to school. And I want to explore that with you. So what is the hardest part about going to school? What is the scariest part about going to school? If you had a magic wand and you could wave it and you can get rid of any part of your day at school, what would it be? If you had a magic wand and you could change anything at school, you can zap people away or things away, or you can add things, what would you do with your wand? When you think of your school day, what is the worst part of your day? What's the biggest struggle when you're having that part of your day? Now, the conversation may not go smoothly, and that is okay. And if they say no or I don't know, you can gently force it a little bit and say things like, well, if you had to guess, what would it be? Or if you did know, what would it be? Sometimes, surprisingly, in my therapy practice, kids would answer after I would say those things. Now, obviously, you don't want to rapid fire these questions. You want to sprinkle them throughout your conversations that you're having with them and gently push so you can get some more data and information on what is driving that avoidance. And sometimes you might have to have multiple conversations to start to piece together, oh, they keep bringing up math, or they keep bringing up lunchtime, or what does lunchtime and recess have in common? Well, they're non-structured times. What's the hardest part about lunchtime? What's the hardest part about recess? Oh, they're both noisy. Okay, now I'm getting somewhere. So you might have to connect the dots, and you might have a child who's not willing to even talk to you about that. And then you have to build trust and communication. Actually have a whole podcast on that you can listen to. But you want to try to explore what is going on. I can't tell you how many times in my therapy practice that it was a school issue that could be resolved. For instance, you can do an IEP or a 504 plan if you're in the United States, or accommodations if you're outside of the United States, where maybe they have to accommodate some things. When my child was 6, 7, and 8, they had to have accommodations in the school environment so that I can at least get them to school. We were accommodating the anxiety and OCD. She didn't have to go to recess. She didn't have to go to lunch. She was able to go to the office, but it got her in school. And then once she was able to tolerate that, we slowly moved back. She had emetophobia and sensory motor OCD. They're both were playing a big issue in her school avoidance. Once we knew what parts of her day were the issue, we were able to accommodate to get her back into school and then build up her skills in therapy to be able to tolerate the discomfort and slowly get her back into the cafeteria and at recess. I've had people who have had emetophobia, the fear of throwing up, where they are sitting next to a person or they're sitting too far away from the door. And there were simple things that we could accommodate in the short term while they worked with it in therapy. There have been kids that I've worked with where they're being bullied or it's an external issue unrelated to their anxiety or OCD, or they have social anxiety, but they're being bullied too. And it's actually making their social anxiety 10 times worse. And it's a toxic environment. And we've decided that's not an optimal situation. I have worked with kids where the anxiety and OCD was just showing up at school and they were worried about kids who were immoral because they had moral OCD, or they were worried about things not being just right. And it was going to happen in any environment. And so maybe we can come up with some accommodations in the short term, but the school wasn't the problem. It was the lack of skills that was the problem. And so we had to double down in therapy and build those skills. If you don't know the why, you can't start with the how. And so I hope that these questions are helpful to figure out or start connecting the dots to why is your child avoiding school? And then you can explore that further. I hope that you're finding my videos helpful. Don't forget to subscribe or hit the bell so you get notified, because I'm making new videos every single week to help you, the parent, support your child with anxiety or OCD. Take care.